Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanenbaum here. Thanks for listening today. This is the Security News Update for May 14th, 2023. In the Alerts Department, we have the MSI is a Taiwanese motherboard manufacturer or system manufacturer, and they were hacked. The hackers claim to have stolen 1.5 terabytes worth of data, and that included firmware, source code, databases, and other stuff. After the hackers didn't get paid, they started leaking the stuff on the net. And what we discovered was in there, amongst many other things, is the private code signing keys for 57 different MSI products, and also the Intel BootGuard private keys for another 116 products. Now, Intel is quick to point out these are keys that MSI generates, not Intel doesn't generate them. So that this only affects MSI. But some of these keys may be coded in firmware or maybe even in hardware. It may not be easy to change, may not be possible to change. We're hoping that MSI gives us some more information about that. And even if they are able to revoke the keys, whether or not the software on the other end actually looks for revoked keys or not is a whole other conversation. So I think this is a bit of a mess. And MSI motherboards are in a lot of systems, so this affects more than just MSI branded products. In the reference department, NIST has released a draft of the Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. This is long overdue. The last version was from 2014, so that's almost 10 years. And if you use the NIST Cybersecurity Framework in your business, or by contract you're required to comply with it, or regulation you need to comply with it, then looking at this probably makes a lot of sense. In the important issues department, China has raided the office of CapVision, multiple offices in Shanghai, Beijing, Suzhou, and Shenzhen. Questioned employees, seized items, even arrested somebody. They claim that's because Western countries are increasingly engaged in intelligence aimed at stealing confidential information in key areas such as military, defense, and finance to suppress China. Well, China would know a little bit about stealing information, so maybe they're right. Maybe they are doing that. But I think the key point there, though, is for Western countries who are doing business in China, you need to make sure that you understand the risk-reward trade-off and you're taking appropriate protections. And it doesn't just apply to China. China is just pretty blatant about it. Normally they're covert about stealing your data, but apparently covert didn't work here, so they just became very blatant about it. In the legal department, the SEC has issued a $279 million reward to a whistleblower. This is designed to get companies' attention. Most people will blow the whistle for $279 million. I might be inclined to do that if I had something to blow the whistle about. So, whistleblowers are typically disgruntled now former employees or vendors or competitors, any one of those three. And I think, if you have the option of making almost 300 million bucks, you might be inclined to drop a dime, as they say, and tell the SEC. Now, from the SEC's perspective, this is a win-win deal. Yes, they had to pay out $279 million, but that comes from past fines that were collected. They did recover $4 billion. They haven't said who the company is yet. I'm sure that will come out shortly, but at this point, they haven't said who it is. So just be aware that if you have people around you who are unhappy, they may become multimillionaires. Assuming you did something wrong, of course. Next, a Pittsburgh counselor, psychotherapy counselor, was fined $15,000. It's kind of a bit late, in my opinion, but nonetheless, it was done. The Office of Civil Rights tried to explain to this guy what they were supposed to do in terms of turning over medical records to a parent of minors. For whatever reason, we don't know the details. The counselor refused to do that. Maybe they thought there was abuse involved or something. I don't know. But in any case, the Office of Civil Rights apparently wasn't convinced with whatever the counselor's story was. So the next year after this happened, the counselor did the same thing again when the father asked for copies of records. And this time, OCR fined the guy $15,000. Now, $15,000 is not a huge amount of money to psychotherapists who might be making millions of dollars a year, but still, and it took 6 years to happen. So, not a great outcome, but I guess better than nothing. In the breaches department, NextGen Healthcare was breached. It affected 1.1 million customers, and this is kind of a really strange situation. So the hacker group Black Cat claimed credit for this, and then NextGen came out and said, no, that was a different breach. This is a new breach, and we don't know who's involved in this one. So I'm not sure that that's a great thing to say. I don't know that that instills a whole lot of confidence, but they're trying to make a distinction between which breach Black Cat is claiming credit for. Next, the city in Dallas ransomware. Other city agencies apparently already paid ransoms, which is nice to know. The Dallas Central Appraisal District paid $170,000 after being down for 4 months. And my speculation is they obviously didn't have any backups, right? Otherwise, they would be up in less than 4 months. And probably losing all their appraisal records did not seem appealing to them, so they decided to pay the ransom. On the other hand, using taxpayer money to fund North Korea and Russia doesn't sound like a great idea in my perspective. So hopefully someone will get fired over this, or multiple people. Their sister agency, Appraisal District Agency in Austin, was hit in December, but apparently they did understand the concept of backups, and so they did not pay the ransom. Now, of course, the FBI keeps telling people not to pay ransoms, and that's easy for them to say because it's not their data. But on the other hand, we're also in a situation where we really got to worry about funding these terrorist groups. Next, also in the breaches section, a company called Optimize, spelled EYES, cute, leaked at least 68 gigabytes worth of data that was posted on the hacker board 4chan. Now, here's an interesting challenge. This is where third-party risk comes in. Amongst the data that was leaked was data from some kind of assessment that they did for Philip Morris. And that data included credentials. So the first question is, why are they storing credentials? And the second question is, why aren't they doing a better job of protecting Philip Morris's data, and apparently other companies too? It looks like this data is going to be a gold mine for the hackers, and it's now posted for everyone to download. So it also included, by the way, internal credentials to optimize AI servers and ultimately their own source code. So this is like a total dumpster fire for this company. I've never heard of them, but apparently they're big enough that people like Philip Morris use them. Still, I think this will have some negative impact on the business. Next, the French tourism company La Malle Postale leaked data on 90,000. And here's where people store stuff, and they really just shouldn't store stuff. But these guys are they serve hikers on popular hiking trails, but they're a transportation company, so they move your luggage and stuff, while you're hiking. A research team found unprotected data stored with names, emails, and phone numbers of almost 90,000 customers. Now, you got a question about how serious a breach that is, because it's names, emails, and phone. But then they found credentials, user ID passwords, for 70,000 more customers, or maybe a subset. And these were weakly encrypted, so they were easily decrypted. And then they found emails, passwords, password salts, which is normally used to go protect a password from being reversed. So once you have the salt, then all of a sudden it's now not, it doesn't help any. And administrative authentication tokens. So these guys just got, whacked. There's just, and apparently the employee passwords weren't even encrypted. So Cyber News, who's the researcher that found this, tried to get the company to respond for months. However, they just ignored them, or at least didn't respond to their email. And finally, after I think about 3 or 4 months, they did actually secure the database, which is not great. Oh boy. Now onto the daily news. 5 ways to maximize your cyber insurance benefits. People, talk about insurance companies trying to wiggle out of paying. In the case of cyber insurance, that's certainly a valid concern. But I think for the most part, that's because people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, complying with the policy. So, if you want to maximize the probability of your claim being paid, read the article or reach out to us. Next, Joe Sullivan, the former Chief Information Security Officer at Uber, managed to escape jail time. He did have to pay a fine, do some community service and stuff. But the judge said an interesting quote. He said, if you had another case like this tomorrow, even if the defendant had the character of Pope Francis, they'd be going to prison. So, if you want to stay out of the Crossbar Hotel, learn some more of what not to do. Next, our friends at Twitter, who are about to get a new CEO, attempted to create an encrypted messaging app. It lends new understanding of what a minimum viable product is, an MVP. What they've done is definitely minimal. It's certainly questionable whether it's viable, but if you're thinking about using it, you definitely need to read this to understand what it does and does not do. And lastly, in the security news bites, Google adds a dark web monitoring capability for Gmail users. YouTube is testing blocking videos if you use a modern browser that has that blocks beacons and stuff and blocks ads, I guess. The U.S. probes the possible leak of critical infrastructure data. This one's a big deal. So Rockwell Automation builds all kinds of building automation stuff. Amongst their customers are the government, of course, and they have a facility in China staffed by Chinese nationals, and they have access to who knows what. So I guess this is a question for you to ask when you engage a company. Where are your people? What is the nationality? How do you protect me? Because in theory, these Chinese nationals give this information to the Chinese government. Now all your automation and security and whatever they're doing are now handed over to the Chinese government. Not a great thing. Because of all the data that smart cars are collecting, they are a hacker's dream. We've already seen some challenges with Tesla and some other vendors. So, I mean, I don't know that there's a good alternative right now because cars are all connected, unless you choose to buy an old car, and maybe the only option. But it is interesting to see all the data that is being collected, and then you can kind of speculate what they're doing with it. And there's messages that hackers could potentially destabilize the power grid due to a bug in Siemens programmable logic controllers. And if the bad guys are already in the network, which even the feds are saying that's likely, then exploiting this bug for folks that use Siemens technology, apparently that's definitely not an impossible task. So hopefully CISA is working with the critical infrastructure sector to go off and plug this. The challenge is that because these guys can't go down, you can't just reboot the power grid when you want to upgrade it. You just can't do that. And the concern is always that if you go off and upgrade something, you're going to break something and you take the power grid down. And people don't like being in the dark and in the cold. So how you deal with this is a problem, but not dealing with it is also should not be an option. So hopefully the folks that are kind of above my pay grade are dealing with this, but it's definitely a challenge. That's all we have for today. Thanks for listening. Until next week, stay safe. Thanks.
Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions offers the complete cybersecurity program for small to medium-sized businesses. They include everything needed to secure your business and meet compliance requirements. Visit our website at turnkeycybersecurityandprivacysolutions.com to learn more.